The Immortals were the elite heavy infantry of the Achaemenid or Persian Empire. A majority of the Persian forces were lightly armed levies, such as the Sparbara or Takabara. The Immortals were professional soldiers who had been promoted into the unit as a result of exceptional skill, bravery, and suitable connections within the Persian court. Numbering 10,000, the Immortals were so named because the number of men positioned within the unit constantly remained the same. Simply put, when one member of the Immortals died, a suitable candidate would be promoted and assigned in his place. As a result, the number of men serving in the Immortals never once dipped below 10,000, except in exceptional circumstances such as during the heat of battle. Indeed, the name Immortals is actually given to us by the Greek historian Herodotus, as a reference to the fact that the unit never seemed to permanently die. However, it is debated if the Persians actually referred to the unit as the Immortals, with some historians arguing that the unit was actually called the Companions, and Herodotus simply mistranslated the word, although this is a dubious theory at best. The Immortals was something of a mystery to the Greeks. The Greek historians who wrote about them are somewhat contradictory as to what weapons and armour they wore. Herodotus provides the most in-depth account, therefore we will be using his description to describe the weapons and armour used by this unit. For shields, the Immortals are reported and often depicted as wielding tall tower shields, also used by the Sparbara. This shield was made up of tough wicker, which provided surprisingly adequate protection against the many missile-based armies of the East. However, tough as it was still not resilient enough when pitted against the heavy weapons and soldiers of ancient Greece. The Immortals seem to have solved this problem by wrapping the shield in thick leather, which provided some extra resistance to the shield in tough situations. As well as this tower shield, the Immortals are also commonly depicted as wielding large oval shields with circular notches cut into the sides. In terms of armour, Herodotus writes that the Immortals commonly wore scale armour coats. These were probably of bronze, as another source, Xenophon, describes the armour being made of this material. It is not known what or if the Immortals wore helmets. However, it is known that during ceremonial duties, the Immortals would wear a Persian tiara. Whether or not they wore this elaborate headpiece into battle is not known, however they likely, being elite units, would have worn a helmet of some kind. As with all heavy units of the time, the main weapon of the Immortals was the spear. This seems to have been a very similar spear to that used by the Sparbara. This was a short 2-meter long spear with a ball counterweight on the end. However, despite being a pretty standard size for spears, it was not long enough to fend off the tightly packed spears of a Greek phalanx. What's interesting is that the spears of the Immortals actually dictated what rank the individual held within the unit. The ball counterweight would be made up of different metal materials depending on what rank the individual held. For example, the common Immortal would have a silver counterweight, whilst an officer would have a golden one. Further exemplifying their status as an elite unit, the Immortals would be armed with various secondary weapons. They are most famous for wielding bows and arrows, which they could swap out with their spears if they needed to pelt the enemy with arrows. If worse came to worse, the unit was also armed with swords, meaning they could engage their foes in vicious close-quarters combat. This made the Immortals an extremely versatile and effective unit, who often turned the tide of battle on multiple occasions. As effective as they were, the Immortals, as it turned out, were not immortal to the armies of Greece. First used against the Greek allied army at Thermopylae, the Immortals were soundly repelled by the heavy infantry of the Spartans. Later on, during Alexander's conquest of the Achaemenid Empire, the Immortals served more as a bodyguard to their king. However, even this was not adequate enough, as Alexander himself managed to break through their lines and threaten the king's life to the point where the Persian ruler had to run away. The unit was largely disbanded after the Macedonian conquest, but would reappear centuries later as an elite unit during the rise and fall of the new Persian Empire, the Sassanids. Thank you for watching and listening to our videos. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you've enjoyed. All sources are listed and linked in the description below. I've been the Ancient History Guy, and as always, I'll be seeing you later.